Nine out of 9. Easy. Give me a second part. Make it actually difficult. No wind speeds as a hint.
Doesn't the max estimated wind speed give away the rating for the enhanced Fujita scale? I feel like this gives away every answer.
Okay, well it feels like cheating if you put the winds on the screen. Maybe I'm just a nerd for knowing all the thresholds.
If you say the max wind speed, I'll get everyone right.
You gave the official estimated wind speeds to us, therefore its rating. Got them all right.
My nerdy ass got all these right because I have the EF over F thresholds memorized and knew all of the storms.
Same.
You underestimate my autism.
I got every single tornado right since I knew every single one of the tornadoes and ratings in this video.
She gave away the exact EF rating before even saying it by saying the rated MPH. What? Use that one.
This is not at all a guessing game, LOL. You're literally giving us the exact wind speed.
Please do more niche tornadoes. It's easy as hell.
Do this again, please.
The fuck does this mean?
Nah, I'd LARP.
Okay, fine. I'll make it harder. But you asked for it. Just keep that in mind. You asked for it. You know I try to make this stuff for everyone, right? Not just the people that have the EF scale memorized. But I digress. So the way it'll play out this time is that I will show you the tornado, give you the damage, give you a little bit of information, and then after I reveal the rating, I will tell you the wind speeds. So no wind speed hints this time. You are going in completely blind, just like a survivor. So best of luck, hold on to your hats, and let's see how many you get right this time. April 26th, 2024. A large-scale and destructive tornado outbreak was occurring across the Midwestern, Southern, and High Plains regions of the United States. The outbreak was the largest since a similarly large and deadly outbreak the year prior, although this one was spread out over a slightly larger time period and was not as deadly. But one of these tornadoes to appear took place in Lincoln, Nebraska at 2:57 p.m. Tracking from northeast Lincoln to west of Waverly, it was only grounded for roughly 5 minutes, but it built up fast, traveling over 8 miles with a max width of 700 yards. It downed power lines, heavily damaged and flipped cars, as well as derailing a 31-car train. It crossed the interstate, bringing traffic to a halt, but giving storm chasers a field day for footage. Dash cam footage captured the tornado as it ripped through a manufacturing building, where 70 workers were inside at the time. Fortunately, there were no serious injuries, only 3 minor injuries, but the business had to lay off 62 employees because of the immense damage to the facility. According to a news release, Garner is providing compensation and health benefits to employees affected by the layoff, but the tornado destroyed the entire 115,000 square foot facility, including production, engineering, warehousing, inventory, and office space. Several cars in the parking lot outside were thrown up to 100 yards. Dozens of homes were damaged, and there were fortunately no fatalities tied to this tornado. But what was it rated? This was an EF3, a heavily damaging and photogenic twister, but it wasn't nearly as bad as its sibling that spawned nearby shortly before and after this one. Impactful and tragic, carrying excessive debris, but not the most impactful storm Nebraska has seen in recent history. Flashback time, y'all. As far back as April 26, 1991, in Wichita, Kansas, at 5:49 p.m., a tornado touched down near Clearwater, moving northeast and rapidly intensifying as it approached Hayesville. After leaving Hayesville in ruins, the tornado struck several residential subdivisions in eastern Wichita, where 4 people lost their lives. This tornado then tracked across McConnell Air Force Base, becoming violent shortly before hitting the tarmac. At this location, things went almost very poorly, as the tornado narrowly avoided striking 10 Rockwell B-1 Lancers, 2 of which were equipped with nuclear warheads. So we got extremely lucky here. Shout out that storm cloud for not turning Kansas into Nuketown. Anyways, it prompted forecasters to issue a tornado warning for residents in Andover that a damaging tornado was approaching. Despite this warning, the single tornado siren that was located in Andover failed. With the sirens not functional, the police drove through Golden Spur Mobile Home Park and through the town, warning residents to seek shelter shortly before the storm's arrival. The mobile home park, located in Andover, was obliterated. 13 people were killed and 165 more were injured as the park was torn apart. The tornado continued to heavily damage Andover. Over 1,500 residences were devastated before the tornado began to weaken after leaving the town. The tornado then struck an oil field, lofting a large oil tank almost a mile away. A short time later, the tornado dissipated, tracking a total of 46 miles over a period spanning almost an hour and a half. 17 people died and 225 were injured, with damages reaching roughly $300 million. While we do not have an official max width, I think the footage we have of it speaks of its dangerous nature on its own. But what's your guess? This was an F5, with a max wind speed of 261 miles per hour. In a National Weather Service post-event document released in December 1991, the curators noted that the mobile home devastation was some of the worst that this surveyor has ever seen. Most of the mobile homes located in the park were destroyed, many of which were swept away or were obliterated with only their metal frames still intact. Before the storm, the mobile trailer park had 244 homes in it. Afterwards, only 39 of these homes could be recovered. A historical tornado with an atomic close call, definitely one for the books. In the early evening of June 4th, 2005, 2 tornadoes spawned near Centralia, Kansas. One tornado occurred in Brown County, southeast of Hiawatha. This tornado started 1/2 mile west of Highway 73 at 4:20 p.m. The tornado then traveled east-northeast for 3 miles and had a maximum width of 150 yards. 3 farmsteads and businesses sustained damage, with a total of 15 buildings damaged or destroyed. Several cars were rolled, and a combine was moved a considerable distance. A salvage yard was near one of the houses damaged by the tornado. A hubcap from the salvage yard had become airborne and was impaled in the sheetrock in the living room of the nearby house. Altogether, it had cost about $400,000 in damages, but fortunately no injuries were reported for this tornado. I'll give you a second to guess. F2. However, I cannot give you a max wind speed, as the National Weather Service does not specify for this tornado outside of the standard F2 speeds, that being anywhere between 113 and 157 miles per hour. Sorry about that one, folks. These smaller ones, they just don't get the attention they deserve. From March 13th to 16th, 2025, a widespread and deadly tornado outbreak, the largest on record for the month of March, affected much of the Midwestern into the eastern United States, with additional severe weather and impacts on the East Coast. While a multitude of tornadoes touched down during that time span, one tornado in particular spawned at 1:24 p.m. southwest of Tylertown, Mississippi. Steadily strengthening, it crossed the highway and damaged multiple framed and mobile homes. Widespread tree damage was also prevalent as the tornado headed northeast, again destroying more mobile homes. The tornado began to pass east of Salem, causing widespread tree fall to forests. Some residents to the east of the community suffered considerable levels of damage before the tornado weakened and passed through the community at Darbin. The tornado remained strong as it caused damage to chicken farms and one nearby farmhouse. Just west of Morgantown, the tornado began to cause its last bits of destruction, with frame residences receiving extensive roof damage, whereas manufactured homes were blown away. The tornado dissipated after being on the ground for 26.05 miles, lasted roughly 30 minutes, and peaked at 880 yards, or half a mile wide. One person was killed and 2 other injuries were reported, but overall, damages cost roughly $5 million. But what was it rated? EF3, with max wind speeds of 140 miles per hour. This bad boy was the second tornado to hit Tylertown that same day. Just an hour prior, an EF4 traveled parallel to this tornado's path, that of which being much more destructive and long-tracked. An unfortunate event, but thankfully it wasn't worse. Hopefully the families affected are in a better spot now. July 8th, 2020, 5:08 p.m., a deadly drill bit tornado struck the area between the towns of Ashby and Dalton, Minnesota. An unusually late-season tornado, it spawned from a severe thunderstorm and started out relatively weak, traveling 2 miles before intensifying. The tornado briefly recycled over I-94 before touching back down on the other side of the highway. A machine shop was completely destroyed and swept off its foundation, killing 1 person. The victim, a 30-year-old man, had been taking videos of the tornado on Snapchat as it approached him and his colleague. His colleague sheltered by hanging on to an underside of a tractor in the machine shop and survived. As the tornado continued northeast, it struck a well-built 2-story house in a rural homestead, which was decimated and swept completely off its foundation. 2 people sheltered in the basement and survived with injuries after the tornado hurled debris, including an entire vehicle, into the suddenly exposed space. The 2 other vehicles near the house were thrown 40 and 300 yards away, one losing its engine in the process. Nearby trees were denuded, stubbed, snapped, and lofted long distances. Continuing on, the tornado produced significant damage to more trees and crops. While dissipating, the tornado likely maintained its strong to violent intensity, causing deep ground scouring before finally collapsing. In total, the tornado killed 1 person, injured 2 others, and had a max width of 650 yards. It caused over $1.8 million in damages along its 9-mile path. But what was it rated? Ready to lock in your answer? It was an EF4 with max wind speeds of 170 miles per hour. Because of the size of the storm and its location, this tornado was extremely well documented. It was actually the cover girl for the disaster movie 13 Minutes. While 1 life lost is too many, this certainly was quite the looker of a tornado. Early afternoon on April 3, 2012, a tornado spawned in Lancaster, Texas, and continued south into southern Dallas. It was the 3rd tornado of the day, and as an outbreak was unfolding across much of north and central Texas, it traveled between 7 to 9 miles and had a peak width of 200 yards. Before crossing the interstate, minor tree and shingle damage occurred, but it quickly approached the suburban side of Lancaster. Many homes sustained severe damage or were destroyed, some of which lost roofs and exterior walls. Vehicles were moved and damaged, trees were downed, an RV was destroyed, and fence boards were speared into homes. 3 buildings were damaged at an apartment complex, one of which had its roof torn off. The Cedar Valley Christian Academy was also heavily damaged and lost an exterior wall. A news helicopter broadcasted live video as the tornado struck the Schneider National Terminal and lofted several semi-trailers high into the air. Over 50 semi-trailers were destroyed or damaged, one of which was thrown into a house. 64 homes were destroyed and 109 others were damaged. 10 people were injured, 2 seriously, but fortunately resulted in 0 fatalities. Damage amounted to $400 million, but what was its rating? This was an EF2. At 4:30 p.m. following the storm, the Lancaster City Council held an emergency meeting and declared the city a local disaster area. Approximately 300 structures were damaged in the tornado, 150 of which sustained severe damage. Roughly 2,000 Lancaster residents living in the affected areas were impacted by the storm. The next day, meteorologists from the National Weather Service surveyed the damaged areas of Lancaster and rated the tornado a high-end EF2, with estimated wind speeds of 130 miles per hour. For all the damage and destruction caused on April 3, 2012, the tornado did have one positive effect on Lancaster North neighborhood. It brought neighbors together who may have only interacted on a limited basis, creating a better sense of community among residents. The Lancaster North Neighborhood Association was formed in part to preserve that sense of community that prevailed in the days and months after the tornado. On the night of Friday, June 27, 2025, two tornadoes spawned from the same supercell moments apart just north of Bismarck, North Dakota. We're going to focus on the first one of these twisters to hit. Only grounded for roughly 4 minutes, it traveled 1/4 of a mile, but with the darkness, its max width remains undetermined. The tornado moved south across the acreage, causing damage to small outbuildings, toppling a covered trailer, and snapping or uprooting some trees. The tornado crossed 110th Avenue Northwest and snapped several branches of a large cottonwood tree in the ditch on the side of the roadway. Because of its placement near a suburban neighborhood, many people recorded the tornado from inside their homes, and the footage is eerie to say the least. The tornado then traveled a few hundred feet into an open field before dissipating. But what are we thinking, guys? EF5? Well, it was an EF1, with max wind speeds at around 95 miles per hour. Only breaking double digits here on the anemometer, folks. No reports of injuries or significant damage, so I'm sure some people woke up, saw it, and went right back to bed. At least it was a Friday night. On May 24, 2011, a massive tornado outbreak was unfolding across Oklahoma, with Storm Prediction Center outlooks covering the bulk of the state with a high-risk probability. South of the town of Chickashaw, a tornado formed at 5:06 p.m. Quickly strengthening, it leveled mobile homes and caused severe roof damage to apartments and other buildings in the area. As it continued northeastwards, trees were debarked, cars were damaged or demolished, and obliterated manufactured homes while also scouring inches of soil. The tornado crossed Maple Ridge Road, where a thin shell concrete dome was damaged, and since the home was reinforced with steel fibers rather than common horizontal and vertical rebar, the dome was severely cracked by flying debris. All the windows were blown out, the doors caved in, and trees nearby were debarked. 10 by 30 inches of asphalt was ripped away. The tornado crossed Kitty Hawk Road, where it rapidly strengthened, and with the most violent damage from the tornado occurring around here. 10 by 100 feet of asphalt was stripped off by the tornado. Numerous trees were blown down and severely debarked, and the ground was scoured, going as deep as 2 to 4 inches. Some parts of the pavement were gouged out by flying debris. A well-built brick veneer home on Kitty Hawk Road was swept away, but it had anchor-bolted sill plates, and some of them still remained intact. The tornado weakened, still causing significant damage to homes and demolishing outbuildings around Newcastle before dissipating north of the Canadian River. Overall, the Chickashaw-Blanchard tornado killed 1 person and injured 48 others. Traveled a path length of 33.3 miles over the course of 55 minutes, with a peak width of 880 yards, or half a mile wide. 261 structures were impacted by the tornado. 72 homes and businesses were destroyed by the tornado. 46 other structures received major damage, and 143 structures only sustained minor damage. Lock in your answers now. This was an EF4, with max wind speeds of 200 miles per hour. Just another extremely powerful twister that falls short due to technicality and location. A handful of researchers and randos on the internet strongly believe that the Chickashaw-Blanchard tornado is an EF5 candidate, and from looking at the damage photos, I get it. But unfortunately, there were just a couple key structural factors that were either strong enough to last through the tornado or were weak enough that they didn't warrant a higher rating. The Storm Prediction Center outlined a moderate risk, over much of the middle Mississippi and lower Ohio valleys on May 16, 2025. Following persistent convective activity from the previous day, a warm front would sweep over a large region from Missouri to the Ohio and Tennessee Valley regions. Over this region, the atmosphere was expected to sharply destabilize, leading to a tornado northwest of Linton, Indiana at 6:44 p.m. Upon touchdown, the tornado damaged many large hardywood trees. A barn door was blown in and some roof damage occurred to a few nearby homes. A fatality and 3 injuries occurred near Country Road when a large tree fell on a vehicle. The tornado strengthened as it continued northeast, crossing Highway 54 south, where additional structural damage to numerous homes was found along with numerous large trees that had either been snapped or uprooted. Significant structural damage was found to several more homes, with one brick-based home seeing the entire roof removed and a wall collapsed. From here, the tornado continued a more easterly movement, with continued damage to several structures northwest of the town of Switz City. The continued destruction to trees and roofs of homes was found through the considerable ridges and valleys south of Worthington. The tornado began to demonstrate some weakening, and then finally lifted before reaching the community of Tulip at 7:06 p.m. It remained on the ground for 22 minutes, tracked 14 miles, caused $1.05 million in damage, and had a peak width of 200 yards. But what are we guessing? Its rating is EF2, with peak wind speeds of 128 miles per hour. I believe if the structures it hit were more well constructed, it might have had a higher rating. But it is what it is, I guess. You know, damage ratings and all that. We get to our final tornado of the day. One last chance to get this right, y'all. On the evening of April 9th, 2015, an extremely violent multiple vortex tornado tore through the communities near Rochelle and Fairdale, Illinois. Part of a larger severe weather event, this particular tornado touched down at 6:39 p.m. over a field, producing swirls and crops. It moved northeast, crossing Illinois 38, twice before causing mild damage to Crest Foods plant. It destroyed 2 farm outbuildings before crossing Illinois 38 2 more times. It then entered an area of semi-rural subdivision to the northwest of Rochelle. A few homes in this area were destroyed, with other homes nearby sustaining lighter damage. One large home had its roof ripped off on its 2nd floor, while a split-level home was almost completely leveled. As the tornado crossed South Richard Road, it intensified and inflicted catastrophic damage to several large homes, as it impacted the Deer Creek subdivision. Well-built homes along South Richard Road and East Cool Court were leveled and swept from their foundations. Several vehicles parked at these residences were moved some distance or tossed. One house had its concrete walkway pulled a few inches from its original location, and notable scouring of lawn grass was observed in the area. A few large barns and more outbuildings were destroyed. 2 brick residences had their roofs ripped off, and another home had most of its walls collapse. The tornado began to intensify again as it approached and crossed Illinois 251. A large restaurant and a residence had their exterior walls collapse in this area. Intense ground scouring was evident nearby. A car was thrown a full mile, and a row of 5 homes were completely leveled. A well-constructed barn was obliterated, and a 40-foot reinforced concrete silo was reduced to a pile of rubble. Nearby trees were severely stripped and debarked. The large tornado then crossed over a Canadian Pacific rail line and directly impacted the small community of Fairdale. Approximately 71 homes sustained some degree of damage, including 13 that were completely destroyed. A few homes that were nailed to the foundation, not bolted, were swept clean. Neighbors Geraldine Schultz and Jacqueline Closa were both killed in their homes, and an additional 11 people were injured throughout the town, including Geraldine's husband, Clarence. The disaster was captured on a phone camera by Clarence, who recorded the tornado from his home. Mr. Schultz survived with a compressed broken vertebrae, but his wife, Geraldine, and their neighbor, Jacqueline Closa, were killed. The Schultz's dog, Missy, and Clem's phone with the footage were found unharmed after the disaster. The footage, which captured the tornado's approach, is extremely well known. Weather enthusiasts, no matter how new, typically have seen this footage. It's incredibly frightening and serves as a great example of just because you're holding the camera does not mean you're safe. The tornado finally dissipated at 7:20 p.m., lasting 40 minutes and traveling just over 30 miles. It had a max width of 700 yards, or 0.4 miles, and resulted in $19 million in damages. 22 injuries were reported, but the only 2 fatalities were of Geraldine Schultz and Jacqueline Closa. But what was its rating? EF4, with max wind speeds of 200 miles per hour. In the immediate wake of the tornado, the Salvation Army and the American Red Cross set up temporary shelters for residents in Fairdale. More than 675 volunteers, coordinated by the nonprofit organization Operation Blessing, and countless residents from surrounding areas assisted in cleanup efforts. AmeriCorps coordinated their own operation beginning on April 12th. Switchyard Bar and Grill in Rochelle hosted a donation drive to provide victims with new household items. Ogle County Sheriff Brian Van Vickle and DeKalb County Sheriff Roger Scott set up a Lost and Found for residents to retrieve missing items. Workers from B Designs created and sold shirts in Rochelle, with all proceeds donated to help the tornado victims. While the tornado footage captured from this event is forever etched into weather history, the people affected know the most about the hardship that occurred after the storm. The cleanup after a storm is the longest part of the process, and the storm itself feels incredibly short in comparison. I'd like to think that 11 years after this event, residents in Fairdale and Rochelle can sleep soundly, as the worst is far behind them. So, how'd you do? Let me know in the comments. I tried to make it a little harder this time. Of course, there are a few that I threw in there that obvious nerds will know, but let me know what you think. If there's anything else you want to see in particular, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. And I did want to say thank you so much for having us hit over 1,000 subscribers. Yeah, big W's here, chat. Big W's. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate every one of you watching. I have a blast making these, and I hope to continue making these. Maybe not necessarily EF rating ones. I can do more, but any kind of weather. I just love the weather. Talk to me about the weather, please. Please talk to me about the weather. Like I said, like, subscribe, comment. You know all the jazz. You know what to do. Have a good day. Thanks for watching.